This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, it was, holy cow, it was last year, I believe. I had the wonderful David Harris on here from The Warriors, and giving his warrior yell. Well, folks, I have my second of the Warriors on here today. We have the wonderfully awesome and talented Apache Ramos. How do you do, Apache?
I'm doing fine. I just want to clear something up. The Warriors, I was the bad guy. We were the orphans. I'm the war chief of the orphans.
Oh, come on. You're not that bad. I can tell right now.
But let me tell you, the orphans are like the Rodney Dangerfield of movie gangs. We weren't invited.
I'm a big Rodney fan, Rodney Dangerfield didn't get any respect. In fact, he said he once went to a bookstore and bought a book, 1,000 Ways to Make Love. He said he ended up in Traction. There was a misprint.
He was the best.
Oh yeah, Rodney was great. Yeah, got no respect at all. He knew there was things going wrong with his sex life when his wife had a mirror put in over her bed. Apparently, she liked to watch herself laugh.
That's true. And what was the other one where he was in the bar and this guy showed him naked pictures and he goes, "Hey, that's my wife."
Yeah, that was Rodney, all right. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was a big fan of Rodney, and I remember when he passed away, and here he is still getting no respect.
Yeah, he's one of the greats. I love all great comedians. In fact, one of my favorite movies is it's a mad world. I remember going to the movies to see that. It had all my favorite comedians, Jonathan Winters, and it goes on. Everybody was around. Buddy Hackett, Sid Caesar. It was an amazing movie. It said it took 4 years to film that movie due to everybody's schedule.
Or maybe they were just having so much fun they weren't getting nothing done.
Can you imagine?
Well, there are some movies.
Stole the show, though.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen The Warriors too, but I remember when I did see it last, and holy cow, there's so many like that Central Park. Like, I'm a big fan of the movie Ms. 45 with Zoe Tamerlis-Lund, the late Zoe, and of course you got that scene where the gang is surrounding her and she winds up blowing them all away with her handgun, and it's a beautiful scene where she walks to that center of that circle piece, and you can see the fountain in the background and whatnot, and in the staircase where she goes down, and that same location, of course, is in The Warriors. Now it's like, nice.
Yeah, that big conclave scene was at the Riverside Park. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be in Van Cortlandt Park, because that's because the Warriors are coming from uptown, from the Bronx. They have to go through Orphans Turf. So, but it was really shot in Riverside Park. Great. That's one of the best scenes. I mean, my man, rest in peace. That speech, it was incredible. It was an incredible speech.
Yes.
There's so many protests when that movie came out. People were saying that, why is this? You can look it up. People had protest signs in front of the movie theaters, and you look at it now, and it's very, very soft now. It's like, they keep talking about remaking The Warriors. I've been hearing that since '85, but it would be a totally different vibe, totally different flavor. Most fans are against it, but some are, into it. But, we made this in 1978. We had no idea that, look at this, I'm talking to Greg the Snake in 2018. It's incredible, it goes on and on. We're having a big Warrior cosplay over here in Coney Island with the local affiliate baseball team for the Mets called the Coney Island Cyclones. and they're having a cosplay event. And they asked me to throw out the first pitch. I mean, I got to start practicing. I haven't thrown a baseball since 2005 when I broke my arm. But these things keep happening. It keeps happening. It's incredible. It's such a part of pop culture. One of my greatest things when I'm doing these events is people tell me the first time they saw the Warriors and what it meant to them. One guy in particular, he tells me that his father was never really around, and then he promised to take him to the movies, never took him to the movies, and then he was going to take him to see Lady and the Tramp, and then he surprised him to see the Warriors. And that movie, because he saw it with his dad at the time, is such an impact to him. And I hear that all the time. It's a true blessing. I lucked out.
Well, you know what? You don't have to worry about the pitch and the baseball, because there was a gang that could teach you all about that.
The Furies.
The baseball Furies. I mean, they're not going to hold grudges anymore. They'll teach you.
I mean, it was incredible. I mean, it's so unrealistic, but it's so powerful. These guys were, Walter Hill was a big Kiss fan.
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from. And with the baseball bats and the way they're running, that's my favorite part of the movie, too. I mean, everybody loves the Furies. In fact, I hang out with a crew. There's a crew here in New York City called the Furies Revenge. And they do a lot of events and charity events. And we had a race from they do the Warrior race, a bicycle race where they go from the Bronx to Coney Island, and it's a 24-hour event, and they make different stops. They stop at all the Warrior locations, and I got to start them going, and the Furies were part of that. This group, I got to give them a shout out. The Furies Revenge with Clash and David Goodies. They're really good. I mean, it just lives on. And I love to see, the Warriors is like the Rocky Horror of gang shows. When you went to see Rocky Horror and everybody dressed up? Yep, that's what the Warriors is. I've been to many showings and people dress up, and it's a real honor when somebody has a big afro and they have my tattoo and they have my people do the orphans, and it's amazing. It's a true blessing. In fact, my daughter didn't have any problems in school because everybody thought I was a gang member.
Where's your big afro now?
Well, it's funny, Greg. Python, my man, I love the funny part is that I get a lot of questions. One of the first questions I get is, was I wearing a wig? And it's so funny because they got to see my high school picture. But, that was the 70s, man, and everybody had fros back then, that was the style. But, when we were shooting the Warriors, it was very tense times because we had just been over the summer of hell in New York, 1977 with the Son of Sam and the blackout. So, and New York was a totally different place. It was really scary back then. In fact, my daughter always says, Dad, how did you survive? I said there was no alternative. You know what I mean? But I was born in Brooklyn and raised in the Bronx, and that's why my blood type is B positive.
Yeah.
But it was a different place. Yeah. I could keep talking. Just ask me anything, Greg. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. People want to hear you, not me, But I should, before we continue off the Warriors, I'm just wondering if I get a little bit of your background and what made you get into the business.
Well, I started out as a child. But, what happened was, let me see, how did I get into it? Just growing up in New York City, like I said, I was born in Brooklyn, but I was raised in the Bronx. And, people have these images of the Bronx, but to me, that was all I knew. And to me, that was my paradise. And not like today where I could barely get my grandson out the house because of the video games. But, my mother used to throw us out the house, go out and play, So all you needed was a ball and a stoop and, I think back on my childhood. I had a really wonderful childhood, but when I look back at it compared to now, it's really, really rough, different times. But, I went through those changes, and well, let me see, just then, junior high school, then high school. Then I had a lot of, high school. It was the 60s, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was a lot of fun. I got into some trouble. And then somebody saw something in me. I had this wonderful black guidance teacher. I went to Alfred E. Smith High School in the Bronx. They shot, I think, Blackboard Jungle there. They used to be Bronx Vocational.
Okay.
But I was active in a lot of different things, even though I was doing crazy things too. But I had this black guidance teacher that saw something in me that I didn't see. And the next thing I know, I'm up at Dartmouth College with a program called the ABC program. Great shout out to the ABC program because it saved my life. And was the first time I met Native Americans, because I grew up in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know any Native Americans, and it was a program. It was called A Better Chance, and they help minorities. It was the 60s. It was the late 60s, and the civil rights, and we got opportunities to go to these schools that would give us a better education. So when I went up to Dartmouth, I was pretty wild. And, of course, I had the nickname Apache, and, people were like, that's not cool, blah, blah, blah. But I had my friends from New York, and, it was like summer camp in a way, too. And I wound up making great friends and got great respect from everybody, We stood up. Next thing I know, I was in Andover High School, which is funny because I played football, little football in the Bronx on the high school team, and it was called the Warriors. And when I went to Andover and it was a totally different thing. I was telling the coach, my mother's going to send my equipment. And they laughed at me, and they took me into a training room. It was a totally different world, the Andover, Massachusetts. And, when you study biology, you go out in the woods, that kind of thing. And it was a big change. And we all lived on a house on Main Street. And from there, I was writing, and I did a lot of poetry stuff, at the time, doing a lot of poetry. And then when I got to college, I went to Hampshire College in Amherst, Mass. I went there before they had a graduating class. I went in there in 72, so I'm the class of 72, but I graduated in 76. But it gave me an opportunity because I had this really, really, really cool fisherman from Maine. They only had one writing course. It was playwriting. I had never even seen a play. So this fisherman named Gladden Schrock, he would come down once a month and see what you wrote. And then we would talk about writings. It was, it was a totally different experience. This is college, So the first day, he had all this bottle of wines on the desk. And he said, the first thing he said to us, this is not going to make any sense today, but remember this, never blank your leading lady. He didn't say the blank, but you picked it up.
Yeah.
And it made sense in the future. So I started writing, and he liked my writings, and he told me to mount it, which I didn't know what it was. So I tried to get people to do my play. And, of course, I didn't have experience. Nobody wanted to do my play. So my friends would do it with me. And we had a group called Moto Theater, and I started getting really good at this. And he gave me a scholarship to Napa Valley, California, and I became a member of the Napa Valley Theater Company. And I thought I was going to Hollywood, and I had all this money. And before I went, I had partied it out in New York City. So I thought I was going to Hollywood. I wound up in San Francisco, and I had to take a bus to a place called Yorkville, Yorkville, California. So I decided to get a tattoo, and I used to always travel with a Puerto Rican flag tattoo jacket on the back of my Levi jacket. And so I put that, and it turned out to be Lyle Tuttle, the famous tattoo artist Lyle Tuttle, which is my daughter told me years later. Anyways, so I go up. I have high heels because, he's wearing high heels in New York back in the day. And I'm totally inappropriately dressed, and the bus keeps going. And then past the city, and I'd see cows and stuff, and it keeps going, and it keeps going. And the next thing I know, I'm in the vineyards of Mondavi wineries, and they had a theater there. So these hippie people picked me up at the bus. There wasn't even a bus stop. They just left me off on a dirt road. I had to wait there. It was so weird. I was freaking out. But they took me to a shack, and that was my house. It was the back of the Mondavi winery thing. So then that's where I learned theater, because I thought I was going to be a star, and I had spent all my money, so I couldn't go home. So my first day, they gave me a broom. And I was heated. Let me tell you, Greg, I was heated. A broom, but I couldn't go home. So I learned to sweep the stage. I learned to respect it, and that's where I served my apprenticeship. And it was one of the greatest 6 months of my life. We did summer stock. We did Streetcar Named Desire, and we summer stuff. And then from there I kept going. Finally, I graduated from Hampshire in '76, and walk into the summer of hell of '77 back to New York, and my whole neighborhood got wiped out in that blackout. The whole neighborhood. I mean, I was sitting on my stoop and watching my whole neighborhood get destroyed because people. I remember the blackout of 1965. I was in the Bronx, same location, and it was a totally different thing. People were freaked out. They were more scared about, the Russians were coming. The Russians were coming. Another one of my favorite movies. But, everybody was kind of chill because in those days you used to have these air raid drills where you had to go under your desk, in case they dropped the atomic bomb on New York City. That was supposed to help you.
Yeah, desk.
Yeah, so... But yeah, that's the kind of thing we grew up with. And anyway, so came to New York, and I wasn't getting any parts. And I was good friends with one of my classmates at Hampshire College, and her brother happened to be playing Danny Zuko on Broadway. He's a really great actor, Treat Williams.
Okay.
And Andrea Williams and I were close, and his girlfriend at the time, Broadway actress named Janie Sell, got me an agent. These people were really nice to me. Treat was wonderful. Andrea was wonderful. And I was going out for auditions, but I wasn't getting any gigs. And I went out for this play. You get this magazine in New York. I don't know if they still do it. It's called Backstage. And, you go. And I went to this audition, and it was a Nation of Islam, a mosque, but I didn't know it. And I went there, had a knife on me because in those days I traveled with a knife. I don't know what I was going to do with it, but yeah. And they search you and they pat you down. And I got to work with a great playwright, Saladin Shakur, and he wrote a play called Armageddon, and it was about Attica. And if people remember Attica, all you got to remember is Al Pacino. Al Pacino going, Attica, Attica. Yeah, I love him. I love Pacino. But and so I got to do. That was the most violent play I was ever in. Even rehearsals, because we had real correction officers that were playing these parts, and it got a little heated, man. So we did that for a while. I was working in Bloomingdale's.
Okay.
I was working on Bloomingdale's, hanging out at the Subway and Bar across the street, which is a New York City landmark now, and they moved it up. They moved it up to Third Avenue now, but. I was hanging out there. And then I got this call to go to this Paramount Pictures for the Warriors.
Okay.
So at this point, I was like, I was really frustrated in those days. Very easy. I was wild. I was like 23, 24 years old. I wanted everything right away.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It doesn't work that way. And, I was Apache Ramos. I had a little swagger to me. And, I go there. I had an attitude. I had a black T-shirt with silver letters that said Bronx, shorts, my Pumas, my Clyde Frazier, Walt Frazier. I used to wear my blue suede Pumas. You could tell because all my sweat socks were blue, and from the rain. And I had a bottle of rum, and. I was sitting there, and like the Eminem song, he looked like me, he talked like me. There was a lot of cats that looked like me there, because they were doing gang things,
Yeah.
And so we knew it was gang. So I'm sitting there, and this dude sits next to me, and we're talking. I give him a sip, we take a sip, and he goes away, and I'm sitting there for a long time, but I'm all right, So they finally called my name, and I go in there, and the guy I was talking to was Walter Hill. I didn't even know it was Walter Hill. And he hired me on the spot. I didn't even have to read for it. So, and, the way I remember it, he said, Patty, I wish I'd have met you sooner. But I got this part. It's a small part. And would you take it? I was like, hell yeah, bro. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is Paramount Pictures. I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
And so when we got the script, and I saw who the orphans were. The late Paul Greco, he was the leader of the orphans, and I was the war chief. But Paul and I had met for the first time. What a wonderful guy. Rest in peace, man. But we hit it off right away, and we were reading the script, and we could tell that the orphans was to be played like really lame-ish, And we didn't know. Walter wouldn't let us see who the warriors were. So, we got our lines. We practicing out a little bit of lines, and we see Mercy. Oh my God, she was so fine. Debbie Van Valkenburg. She was so beautiful, and she still is today. She still keeps in touch. I got great love for Debbie Van Valkenburg. In fact, she got me involved with the whole Warriors signing autographs things that I get to do once in a while, which is a lot of fun. And so here we go. We're ready. And Walter used to, it was really hot and sticky in New York City. It was summertime. And he would water the set. He would water, there's water all over the place. He would hose the sets down to give it that look. And all of a sudden we see the Warriors. And, at that time, the way I grew up, they did not intimidate me. I didn't see too many blonde guys like that and stuff, and Fox, and we're all friends. We're all friends now, but it's so funny the very first time. But because I'm short. I'm 5'6", right? But I see myself bigger, So when I see pictures of myself with other people, I think, damn, I'm really short. Especially now that I think I've shrunk since I got in my 60s. But so we see them, and we played it, and we brought the orphans to life that day. We brought them to life, and the funniest part for me in the movie was when they blow me up and they blow up the orphans. So they did it 3 times. When they blow up the car, and I said, "We're going to rain on you, warriors," which was pretty much an improv line, because while we're waiting for the car, they would put some glue on the car, and you're waiting for the car to explode. Mm-hmm. And so you're doing all this improv. Yeah, we're going to get you, warriors, blah, 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 your mother, blah, blah, blah. So I came up with, "We're going to rain on you," and Walter liked that, so he kept it. And thank God, because that's like, I've said that line, "We're going to rain on you, warriors," in about 4 movies, about 1,000 times. It's one of the big lines in the Warriors, and I'm so proud of that line because it helps me in a lot of ways. But so the first time, the stunt guy was really close, and he was about my height. Mm-hmm. I didn't know he was Patty, but I wanted to be in the movie because you don't know if you're going to be in the movie or not. So I'm a tough guy. I get up really close to blah blah blah. We're waiting around, blah blah blah, waiting. When that thing blew up, oh, my God, they forgot to take the windshield off. So there was this, literally raining glass. The hood landed, if you look at the scene now, the location, there's a barbershop there, and it's a little like a driveway thing. It flew up on the roof. I mean, it freaked me out because I thought it was going to be like something I saw on TV. You don't really feel it. So the guy comes out, "Sorry, blah, blah, blah. Let's do it again." The next 2 times we shot that, I'm sure they got the first one because I was like, "We're going to rain." I was backing up every time when that thing blew up. And, that's some of the experience of that scene. Yeah. It was 2 different shots. One is none of those scenes are in the Bronx. It was Long Island City and then Brooklyn. When the Warriors turned the corner, that's Brooklyn, and the beginning is Long Island City when we have that little place. In fact, there's a group called Delta Bravo, shout out Delta Bravo, where they go to the actual film locations, and they took me to that spot I hadn't been there in 30-something years, and they took me to that spot where we shot that scene on the staircase, and it was like, woo, I could see ghosts, It was incredible, yeah. Danny O'Connor from the House of Pain. I don't know if you know House of Pain. Jump.
Okay,
He's
yeah.
Danny O'Connor. He's the one that in his Delta Bravo group. Danny's also doing an incredible thing. The Outsiders, the movie The Outsiders.
Yep, I'm familiar with it. Yep.
Well, yeah, Danny O'Connor from House of Pain. He's my man in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they shot the film. They're rebuilding the house of The Outsiders, and. In fact, he had me come out there because they have an old movie theater. In fact, they play up there in Tulsa. They have those old time pianos where they can play silent movies. A beautiful theater.
Mm-hmm.
So they played the Warriors, and I went up there to help them raise money to rebuild the outside his home in Tulsa, Oklahoma. See, I get to do things like that because of the Warriors.
Well, that's an honor. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and actually showed me a spot because I was in the house while they were working on it, where the actors signed. They all signed on this little space in one of the closets. Yeah. Yeah, I can go off on tangents, Greg. Keep me on focus.
Oh, no, this is fascinating. I've said that scene.
It's been a funny life.
Was that the hardest scene for you to do with the car, or was there other things that were more difficult?
Oh, the playing Aesop in Armageddon. That about Attica. That was really tough because it was really physical. There was a lot of pushing and shoving. This was Hollywood. Because right now Hollywood ain't calling for me, but I'm doing a lot of little independent films, which I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
Because I've recently retired. I was after I did the Warriors, I met one of my roommates in college was the great Arthur Baker, who did like Planet Rock, and he has a record label called Streetwise Records. He said, "Hey, you want to be in the record business?" So I was like, "Yeah, I'm like packing stock at Bloomingdale's. Yeah, I'd rather go be in the music business, sure." So the next thing I know, I'm picking and packing records in a warehouse in Long Island City, and with National Record Distribution Place. So from there, I became a national salesman, selling records all over the country. Atlantic Records, all the top hits in the States and all over. And then he started the record label Streetwise Records, and with Streetwise Records, I became an A&R coordinator. And people would submit demo tapes, and in those days there were cassette demo tapes. I'm talking like 83, 84, 85.
Yeah.
And Streetwise Records, we turned out to be one of the hottest independent record labels at that time, because in those times the independent record labels were the ones who broke these groups,
Mm-hmm.
And then the big guys would come, like MCA and Atlantic, and all these people would come. But so I got the great opportunity to work with some really good groups. New Edition was one of the groups that came out of the Streetwise Records family. The heart and soul of the group of the label was Rockers Revenge, which so happens today. You know how things come in bunches?
Mm-hmm.
Today and yesterday, we were filming a documentary about Streetwise Records and all the great artists we had, and particularly Rockers Revenge. So in the last 2 days, I've been doing that, and that'll be coming out. But we had Lolita Holloway, we had Rockers Revenge, we had a guy called Colonel Abrams who recently passed away. He was one of the kings of house music. Music is the answer.
Mm-hmm. And
one of the great joys, besides working with these groups, I got to meet Eartha Kitt because we put out one of her records.
Yes.
And the great Eartha Kitt. Okay, I'm born Christmas Eve, 1953 is when I made my debut.
Yeah.
So when you're born Christmas Eve in the hood, it's double or nothing. It sounds great. But, you're going to get, you're not going to get for your birthday and Christmas that, you're going to get one thing, so I'm used to that. So, Streetwise was very hot. I was very hot at that time in the record business. So people had sent me champagne and stuff like that for my birthday. But I was in the office. We were on 43rd Street and in Manhattan, and the heart of everything. And all of a sudden, I'm there with a few coworkers. We're working late. We're having a good time. We're drinking champagne. Who walks in? The diva of divas, Eartha Kitt. I was like, what? What? And I kept calling her Miss Kitt, Miss Kitt, Miss Kitt. And, I turned into a puppy dog. And she was like, if you keep calling me Miss Kitt, I'm going to go upside your head. My name is Eartha, and I'm from South Carolina. And we hit it off from there, man. So I spent my birthday drinking champagne with Eartha Kitt one time. So
Oh,
we hit it
wow.
off so well that I got to go on a few dates with her. You know, she was just wonderful. I mean, she's a true legend. You know, just true legend.
Yeah.
Just wonderful. So I have had some great experiences, and then from there, the record label folded. We're sitting on top of the world, and one of the great things, though, from Streetwise Records was I met my wife, Ray Chambly, and she had bought me a demo tape, and I turned it down. And it wasn't Streetwise material, so she said that was cool. And I met her. She was publicist for the Sugar Hill Gang. You remember the Sugar Hill Gang, you know, hip, hop, all that.
Yep.
And Sister Sledge, she was their publicist.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned it down, and we went to see Eddie Murphy Trading Places. We'll be celebrating 34 years of marriage in October, or it's 35. I'm not sure. I better clear that up, but she's not here.
You want to get that right.
Yeah, I got to get that right. I got to look up when Trading Places came out.
1983.
Okay, thank you, brother.
Yeah.
And we had a wonderful daughter, and she wanted a son, and I wanted a girl, and I won. And, you know, because most macho Puerto Rican guys, you know, they want boys. You know, I didn't want a boy because I went through a lot. I didn't have a father, so I went through a lot of stuff growing up. You know, I got some serious scars on me, inside and out. You know, from growing up sometimes. But so I wanted a girl because when you're a guy, you do stupid things. You know,
Yeah.
you know, all you got to do is watch those shows. You know, especially and you know, getting the nickname Apache. You know, my real name is Gregory, just like you.
Just like me.
That's right. And I got the name Apache. You know, I've told different stories on it, but as I get older, it's like I might as well tell the truth. But it's really lame. I grew up, and the nicknames I had in the street were Shorty, Little Man, Pee Wee. None of them really stuck. You know, those are traditional short man names. And Chino, because you know my eyes, the way my eyes are shaped. Chino. You know, I know it's not appropriate today, but that was a 50s.
Couldn't you imagine in the Warriors if you were named Pee Wee?
Look at that. So one day, my mother, rest in peace, she used to call me Apache in the house. You know, I was her pet name for me. I don't know where she got that name from, but that's what she used to call me. And she said it in front of my friends. And my friends noticed how I reacted that she said that in front of my friends. And it was a wrap, you know. Once they saw my reaction to it, they just kept calling me Apache, and that's how I got that name. That's how that stuck. And then, so when I was going out for things, you know, it's easier to remember Apache Ramos than Gregory Ramos, you know, Ramos. But yeah, so that's how I got that name. But yeah, so after Streetwise Records, the record label, we're the hottest record label. You know, we had our Streetwise jackets. I can go to any club. I remember Freeze. We had the group called Freeze.
Mm-hmm.
They were out of England. They had a big hit called AEIOU. And sometimes why? It was a monster hit in New York area. In fact, in the Puerto Rican Day Parade, everybody was singing that. And so we went to Studio 54, and they wouldn't let us in because of the way we looked. It was so funny. But, you know, I was with the act. We're with the act. So then when they realized it was Freeze got a little upset, blah, blah, blah. So I had the limousine, and I had all the posters and stuff. And it was around Christmas time, and I said, would you like to go to my goddaughter Monique's Christmas elementary school party? And they said, yeah. And believe me, man, till this day, my goddaughter and her friends, they just, on Father's Day, they sent me all kinds of stuff because they never forget. They got to meet Freeze, and it was just a wonderful night. So we met Freeze. Okay, so the label closes, and AMI Productions, Steve Machot, Bill Dern, and Rick Smith. Rick Smith, who, it's a small world, wound up marrying one of the Lizzies. That's how small the world is. But anyways, so they hired me because I had been working with New Edition, and New Edition became my account. And then when Bobby went solo, and then I took care of Bobby. We also had a group from Flint, Michigan that I was responsible for called Ready for the World. And we had that was the only #1 pop record I ever worked, was Oh Sheila. And a lot of people said it sounded like Prince, but everybody sounded like Prince at that time. And rest in peace, Prince.
Yeah.
That's the hard thing about getting older. You keep saying rest in peace a lot. It's a drag, but it's better
Well,
to say
going back to Rodney Dangerfield, he said, when you're getting old, because he said he was envious of a stiff wind. He said you're getting old when people talk about you in front of you.
Oh man! So then that went on for a while, and then so we had New Edition on MCA Records, Bobby Brown on MCA Records. Then we had Colonel Abrams. I brought Colonel Abrams over because I had Colonel Abrams. We had Music Is the Answer, and MCA picked him up. We had great success with Colonel, and that management company also handled Donny Osmond, which was really funny. I have a Donny Osmond story. So Donny used to come to the office when they started to do a little management with him, and he was just the nicest guy, Here's Apache Ramos hanging out with the great Donny Osmond. I mean, he's just a nice guy, So we were teasing each other, so he was showing me his new 8x10. So I'm pretty sure it was 1985, because my daughter was just born. And, crack was the big thing. Crack blew up in the city, blew up all across America. It just blew up. So I had these crack stickers, because it was all over, crack kills, all that stuff. And it did. It was a horrible epidemic. But anyways, that's another story. So he says, how you like my photo? And I said, oh, it's really nice, Donnie. Let me look at it for a minute. So he's doing something else. So I put the crack sticker on his forehead, right?
Yeah.
So I go, I think this would be better, Donnie. So he looks at it, and without even flinching, this is how cool he was, right?
Yeah.
He laughs, he chuckles. He takes a marker. He goes, Dear Apache, thanks for last night. I still have that. Too bad, I'm not a pack rat, so I'm always throwing stuff away. But that's one of the things I have. So Donnie was there. We also had a heavy metal band called Sabotage, and then we had a guy called John Waite from the Babies.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with him.
I ain't missing you at all. John
Yep,
Waite.
I've got that song. Yep.
Yeah, so I got to go to a few gigs with John and with my man Anthony T. Recasino, and I got to hang out with these people. I remember downstairs because our office was 1776 Broadway, it was like 57th Street, 58th Street, right there, and downstairs was the Hard Rock Hotel, and I was backstage for everything. I didn't have to go. I had that kind of status. I had the Hard Rock Gold Card. I remember bringing my daughter when she was a baby, sitting on the Hard Rock bar and all that stuff. And then, then that folds. This is the record business. This is the entertainment business, people. I want you to listen. You're only as good as your last hit, So then I get hired by the manager of the Fat Boys. I'm sure you guys remember the Fat Boys.
I remember them, yep.
Yeah, Fat Boys. So they were like the Three Stooges, man. So I got to be their road manager for 50 cities in 25 days. So let me tell you, that damn near killed me. And not because of it was a tough grind because you travel with two bus drivers. But they were so funny. And everywhere we went, people wanted to take pictures with the Fat Boys with their food. So the bus was full of food. It was just full of food, man. It was just full of food. And they were always playing pranks on each other. And Buffy, rest in peace again, he was the original human beatbox, and he's just the nicest guy. I mean, the whole crew was nice, And he would sleep in the back of the bus because, he was heavy. It was hard for him to breathe, so he would sleep in the back. He had a barber's chair, and we had the air conditioning for him. He would get up in the middle of the night because he would put the sandwiches and stuff in the microwave, and he was the only one that would work it. So Buff would come out, in his underwear, and not a sight for the meek or the timid. And me and Big Daddy, who looked just like Ric Flair, he was one of the drivers. He also doubled as a bodyguard, a hell of a guitar player. We would just laugh because he would work the microwave, see the thing turning, and it would be like a Vanessa Del Rio porn movie. You know what I mean? It was so much fun. We had a lot of fun that tour. But then, my wife got tired of. We had the baby. My wife was like, we're not going to raise this girl by myself. And I didn't have a dad, and I was committed to be the best dad I can. So I got off tour, and it was over. I ended up in New Orleans and came back home. I was living in Union City, New Jersey, like it's little Cuba. If you fell off my terrace, I was on the 23rd floor. If you fell off my terrace, you landed in Hoboken. I could see I had front row for the 4th of July Festival. It was just beautiful because I had the Hudson River. Union City is like 13th Avenue. You have 11th Avenue, and then you have the Hudson River, and then you have Jersey.
Yes.
And we was on a cliff. So, I could see the Statue of Liberty and all that, and it was just wonderful times. So I came back home, and my daughter was little, and I would put her in the bathtub. I was playing Mr. Moms. My wife had a real job. And I was like Mr. Moms, and I put my daughter, her name is Jazz Ray, and put Jazz Ray in the tub and bubble bath and put Aretha Franklin's greatest hits. There's like 35 songs on that thing.
Yeah.
Poor girl turned into a raisin, But then she started singing. Oh, my God. Then that turned into be a whole nother thing. And it was a very hip building. Rita Marley lived in that building. People from Kool and the Gang lived in that building.
Oh, love Kool and the Gang, yep.
My man Blue from the Manhattan. It was called the Doric.
Yeah.
Blue from the Manhattan lived in that building. A lot of artists lived in that building, so it was a lot of fun because it took 10 minutes. Well, I can't lie. If you could go straight through the Lincoln Tunnel, it would take 10 minutes. But sometimes you could spend an hour just going through the tunnel. But if you didn't have no thing, you can get in there fast. So I was living there, and then I was like, what am I going to do? Now the money's running out, and I'm like, oh, shit, I have a degree. I forgot about that. So I spent a good 10 years in the record business. I got a lot of gold and platinums and great stories. And so I see an ad for in the Amsterdam News, which is a black newspaper here in New York City, and they were looking for social workers, social service, welfare workers. So I went, and they hired me, and because I had been in the club scene all these years, because that's how you get your records played. You had to go to the clubs, make sure the DJ played it. Then you had to make sure the record store had it. Then you had to make sure the radio station played it, because the radio station don't play it, the Billboard, the DJs may not play it, and nobody's going to buy it. So that was a constant hustle. So I'm glad I was out of that. So I went into the social service field, and then they had a unit called the Division of AIDS Services. And this is where my life takes a big change, big change. I'm a new dad, and I 1 minute I'm in limousines and just being crazy, and the next minute I'm stuck in the projects in a piss-filled elevator trying to help somebody with AIDS. Because at that time, 1990, people were very afraid of AIDS, and I was familiar with it because of the club scene. Back then we called it GRID, gay-related immune deficiency. And, I had seen some of my friends go. And so I wasn't afraid of the virus because, I'm not afraid of nothing, really, except now the older I get. But, and I sympathize. So I volunteered because that's the only way you can work with that unit. So I worked for the Human Resources Administration Division of AIDS Services. And my beat was Hell's Kitchen. That was my area in New York City. I know people are familiar with Hell's Kitchen, but it's like Times Square, a little over Times Square, down to like 20-something Street, like a square in Manhattan. And at that time, Giuliani was mayor, and things were pretty bad, rough. The city was rough, and Mickey Mouse was coming to Times Square, where it was just dominating everything, and all the peep shows and all that stuff. And a lot of my clients lived in these old tenements that you've seen, like in West Side Story and stuff, and because that's where they shot it. And they're trying to get my clients to move out of there because they knew they were sick, and so they could just, because my clients have been in these buildings for years, passed down. And so, that was my job. I took care of them with the Medicaid, the food stamps, making sure they had housing, and make sure they had the benefits that they were entitled to. We had this great unit in New York, and it was right at the epidemic. So I had a hell of a time. I was drinking a lot there in those times because it was a lot of pain to watch people disintegrate. It's just very, very sad. But, I loved them, and it got to be tough. But then, and then about '94, they started diagnosing women with HIV because of the cervical cancer. So I started getting my first female clients, and by the time I got to them, it was really, really bad. Sometimes, I mean, it was, they were already suffering so much. Because I remember one of my clients in particular, when I went to make the home visit, I had like 48 hours to make these home visits. We would get these pendings constantly, and you had 48 hours to make these visits. And a lot of times the clients were put in these hotels because they were homeless. And, to be homeless with AIDS is a bitch, man. It's just devastating. So, my job was to take care of them. So anyways, so when I got to her house, she thought I was there to clean her fish tank. And she had this huge fish tank, but it had not been cleaned in months and months. And everything was dead in there. And it was really, really sad. And the saddest part, too, was that she was a bodybuilder before she got sick, and it was that her husband was an IV drug user. So that's how she got the virus. And in those days, I was keeping journals because it was too much death all the time. So, and then I had clients who came from different parts of the world who had problems with transgender clients and transvestite clients and, gay clients, which was crazy because you should be in the Division of AIDS Services. But by this time, in '93, '94, there was no longer the volunteer things. You just got assigned, So it was a different mentality. So I had no problem with that because, I was playing, I come from that record business and, that was no problem. So I was, they didn't call me Apache then. They called me Ramos. I was like Ramos, King of Queens. So I had a huge caseload. In fact, I don't know if you recently saw Pose on FX. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't. No.
Well, that's homework, Greg, because the Pose is about the balls, and it's about the late 80s, just when the virus was hitting. And so it's only recently that I've been able to watch things about AIDS because it's so painful.
Yeah.
But thank God they're living better and everything's much better. But, okay, so from there, I wind up I wanted to stay with the AIDS thing, but when you work for civil service, you take tests, and the test your name may not come up for years. So 9 years later, after I took the test, I was those 9 years on the front line with the AIDS virus, and I have so many stories. Oh my God! But anyways, my name comes up, so you go to this pool because you're being promoted. So I say I want to stick with the AIDS group, and my wife pretty much didn't want me to stay with it anymore because it was too much. But one time I came home with an AIDS baby, which, now I think about that, I would have gotten fired. But one of the clients would come in on a Friday, homeless, and this guy had a newborn baby. Turns out the baby's name is Ramos, too. And I did something what I wasn't supposed to do. I took the baby home with me because he had nowhere to go. He was like, "I'll be all right, boo. Can you take my kid?" So you could imagine my wife's face when I knock on the door and she opens the door and I have a newborn. That shook her up, too. But and my daughter at that time was about 6 or 7, and she wanted to adopt it. But the baby had a happy ending because his sister was a cop and wound up adopting it. But I would have gotten in big trouble. But what are you going to do? You got your job, you got your humanity. Sometimes you have to go the other way. But anyways, after that, so I go to this pool for supervisors. I want to stay. And one of my old supervisors who taught me a lot, Mr. Ash, he was like, I know you're coming into the AIDS thing, but you can volunteer to do that. But if you want to make money in overtime, you got your daughter, you put her to private school, you got to go into fair hearing. Now, the difference between fair hearing and the Division of AIDS Services, the clients really want your help and need your help, and it's, you're doing what you can do. But fair hearing, when you're a fair hearing supervisor, you got to enforce the agency's policies. So here I am, a radical my whole life. I put into this position of being the fair hearing supervisor, and they sent me to the South Bronx, where I grew up, which is no problem. Mm-hmm. This is where the Warriors thing came in handy.
Yeah.
Because I was recognized. So I was Mr. Ramos. That's the guy from the Warriors, He's one of the good ones. He's one of the good ones. So I always tell people I speak 3 languages because I spent 13 years in the South Bronx as a fair hearing supervisor. You have to enforce the agency's policies with the Welfare Reform Act of 1996, where you have to work or you have to do something for your benefits. Sounds good, but that people don't fit into those pockets. So when people into those little niches that they want you to fit in, so when people came to see me, they were not in a good mood. They didn't want to see me, but you had to see me before you went to see the judge. And most of the time when people saw me, they were either sanctioned or their case about to close. So I did that for 13 years. But I always tell people I speak like 3 languages: English, a little Spanish, and Macedonian. Because I worked with a lot of people on the methadone program. Because the methadone program is right next to the subway when I got off, so it's a whole different vibe. So that's a joke that New Yorkers get. But so we did that, and I did that for many years. But my picture was at the pizza shop for the Warriors. My picture was in the barber shop. My picture was in the grocery store. So I became really well known in that community. So I didn't have as much static. I only had 1 computer thrown at me and about 4 threats in 13 years, which is really good. Because I always complied with the clients. I grew up on public assistance,
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people may think, a lot of people are not there because they want to be, let me say. And I've seen a lot of mothers, kids were shot or killed, and grandmothers say it's just something. So then towards the end of my career, I wind up in Brooklyn where I have no more client contact, which my wife was so happy because she knows I'm a big wuss. And so I was able to help people. I was doing court cases. I was doing paperwork until I finally retired in November 1st, 2016, which they gave me a really big party. It was pretty nice. But then what am I going to do, right? So what am I going to do? So in between all this, my daughter goes, "Dad, I'm getting married." She's marrying a Greg. His name is Gregory. I go, "No, his name is Gregory." So Gregory and my daughter, now as you know, but the people listening, thank you if you're still with me because I must be driving you crazy. But anyways, my daughter married Marsha McBroom. If anybody's seen Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and look at the record covers, look at old issues of Ebony and Jet, and you will know who Marsha McBroom. Greg, you can take it from here and tell them about Marsha a little bit if you want.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Marsha McBroom, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. I've interviewed 3 people from that movie: Harrison Page, and I had Dolly Reed Martin on here, and Dolly put me in touch with Marsha.
Who was married to Rowan and Martin guy.
Yeah. Oh, I always thought that Dolly was beautiful, especially you see her in Dolls with the red hair and the wide eyes, Yeah.
The 60s, baby.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. What an innovative film, very different. It was pre-Rocky Horror Picture Show before, Rocky Horror became a thing. And, yeah, Marsha McBroom playing the drummer for the Carrie Nations. And, yeah, she was
just an incredible woman.
Yep.
Incredible woman.
Oh, I was happy to have her on here, yeah.
And check this out. So, Greg, who's dating my daughter, Jazz Ray, goes to Jazz's apartment, and my daughter has a poster of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls in her apartment.
Yeah.
And Greg goes, "That's my mom." He's a Warrior fan, and my she has a picture of me. She goes, "That's my dad." We have 2 co-parents here. So funny, and it was like meant to be. So then they get married, and they're having a baby, and so I go, "So you're gonna call the baby Greg?" Because they already knew it was gonna be a boy. And my daughter goes, "No, this must stop." So they both agree on the name Hendrix, as in Jimmy. So,
Okay.
you know, when I on paydays I used to come home and blast Jimi Hendrix Band of Gypsies and Carlos Santana. That's when my daughter knew it was payday, and I'd be drinking it and buying Chinese food. So that worked out for us. And okay, so my daughter. Okay, back to the. So my daughter goes, so Dad, I'm getting married, and my daughter and I are super close. I mean, you know, super close.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in fact, she was managing me. I would take her to these warrior events, and she would watch me. Then she got to the point where she was like, Dad, just be yourself, and I'll tell people how much it is. My daughter's really fine looking, too, so that helped. And she goes, I'll tell people they can take a picture with you for this, and you would sign this, and you would do this. You just do yourself. Just do that, and I'll take care of the money. And she did. So we became a team. So some promoters, when they would invite me over, they would invite Jazz, too, because these incredible kids. Oh, I started telling you about her singing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me do a little bragging here.
Mm-hmm.
So she wanted to go in the record business, right? Because
Yeah.
my wife's doing the record business, too. I'm like, hell to the no. No, no, no. You know, it's a very sad business. You know, she wanted to be Whitney Houston. You know, that was her idol.
Yeah.
So she does it another way. She's, you know, I have her in this private school in Hoboken, and she starts singing in the chorus. And the next thing I know, she's getting singled out. The next thing I know, she gets an audition at the Metropolitan Opera for the children's chorus. I mean, we're talking about the Metropolitan Opera in New York City, you know, big time here. And she was, I remember when I took her to the audition, I was like, don't worry, if they don't accept you, you know, I was preparing her either way, telling her she can do it. And there was the nannies with these kids. They had nannies.
Mm-hmm.
And the nanny was just talking out loud. She goes, oh, your daughter's very cute, but, you know, they make them come 2 or 3 times. And, you know, I was like, oh, yeah, it was all white kids, too. You know, I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then they come out. My daughter got accepted, and she sang with the Metropolitan Opera with Denise Graves and Kathleen Battle. She did Carmen. She did like 4 seasons with the opera. I was so proud. She even sang for Clinton twice. And when the president came to, and I couldn't go. That's another story. But yeah, okay, enough bragging about my daughter. But she's incredible. She has her own business. She's a music teacher, and she does incredible things. But she still manages things that I do. So she goes, Dad, there's this thing called Facebook. Hang out with YouTube. There's this thing called Facebook. And when I left the record business, I left kind of bitter, you know. I had opportunity to go to other tours, but I had to be a dad. You know, you got to be a dad. Your daughter needs you, right? So, and plus the road after your second or third tour, it's a drag. It's a job, man. You know, it's a job. It's horrible. You know. So anyway, so I go, well, how do you make friends? She goes, Dad, people are always calling me, and I don't know who's who. All you have to do is put your name out there, and I guarantee you'll make friends. I go, what? But what does that mean to make friends? She goes, you'll see. So I put my name out there. Bam. Next thing I know, I'm getting calls to do this, and my, you know, elementary school friends, and it just opened up a whole world. There's a whole world for me again, and I became social again. And these opportunities have come up. I've been able to do a lot of the warrior events, and I've been doing these independent films. I got this thing out on Sony that I was working on. When I was on Facebook in the beginning, this guy sent me, he did a parody of the Warriors out of Coney Island, a comedy with real gang members in Coney. So he sent me this parody, and I kind of fell in love with it. So I went down to meet them. I went to Coney Warriors Turf. They love the orphans there. But I was down there, and I started working with them, and the Vamp Bikers thing turned into, I'm working with these young, talented people, and they're giving me like mad OG, you know, respect, and I'm loving it. And, you know, that turned out. Then I've been doing other independent films. I just finished one called Orchard Beach, where I was supposed to be in 10% of the film. I wind up being in 80% of the film because as they were editing, all my side stuff that I was doing, they wind up keeping. So I'm having fun with that. My High and Tight project, I won a Best Supporting Actor in Canada and I got to go grab this thing to see where it was in Canada for my film High and Tight, which I play a barber whose son was going to take over the business, and I can't find it somewhere around here, but my son was going to take over the business, but he got involved with an older woman. The older woman happened to be married to a state trooper, and he caught them in the act and killed both of them and then disappeared for 7 years on the run. So meanwhile, I'm running the barbershop, and he comes back 7 years later. There's a wanted. They haven't captured him, but he hasn't shaved, and he looks like Aqualung from Jethro Tull. Remember that?
Yeah.
Jethro Tull, I know it's a long one. And as I'm shaving him and cutting his hair, because he's watching, and then I finally realized it's the guy that killed my son. I have the razor while I'm shaving him across his throat. And do I kill him or do I forgive him? You got to see the short film. But I sent it to you, so I think you can see it. So life's been good. I have a second grandchild, and she's named after her great grandmother and her grandmother, and after Carlos Santana.
Okay.
And her name is Santana Ruby Ray. Ruby was her great grandma, and Ray is my wife. And so now that I'm retired, I'm able to spend more time with her than I did with Hendrix. And so I live a block away from a fantastic park. I live in Queens, and I just love being retired just for doing that. And I get to do what I want when I want to do it, So life is good. I made it, man. I made it.
There
I
you
remember
go.
The 70s. I made it in the 70s. Making it is having your refrigerator full, your rent paid, a partner that loves you no matter what, and healthy kids and cable. I'm good. That's what I would say. They would say, Apache, how come you only had one kid? Because I thought I had blanks. Because, on the road, I was having good times. I come up from the 60s and the 70s. We were just partying all the time. The porn was totally different.
Yeah.
We had hair back then.
Yeah.
And, but I had a good time, but this happened with this person, and it was meant for a reason. And, people say, how come you only have one? And I said, because I got cable, and I'm blessed to have this one. And with this, I have three now. I have Greg, Santana, and Hendrix, So that, to me, that's success. And, and I get, like I already told you that story. But, so I'm happy where I'm at in life today, Greg, the snake. And I just want to tell you, before we go, I want to make you, Greg the Snake, an honorary orphan, okay?
Oh,
Orphan
thank you.
Well, don't say right away because you don't always get invited. But you're an honorary orphan, and it's nice that you wanted to interview me, so I hope it works out. I hope the people will hear this and dig it.
Oh, yeah. I've never been called Greg the Snake before either. I like that.
I mean, Greg the Python.
Actually, you know what? I'll take Greg the Snake. It kind of reminds me of Jake the Snake.
You know what? Because I'm an old wrestling fan. I'm an old wrestling fan, and I love all that stuff. I love MMA. I was a big boxing fan. I used to hang out in when I was with Streetwise. We was in Times Square area. So back in the day, before they Mickey Mouse Times Square, that we had the Times Square boxing gym, so all the great fighters, and it was just like the movies where people smoking cigars, and it was right there in Times Square, big window, and I got to see all the best fighters in the world train, which is to me harder than the fight, and for only $1, you give the guy $1, you come in, the bodyguard there, you give him $1, you sit there, and that's what I would do on my lunch hour, But then Jimmy Glenn, he had a bar up the corner, but I can keep talking. But thank you, Greg. The Python Orphan, the Python Orphan.
Oh, yes, an honorary orphan. Well, you know what? I'm honored. I do have a few things I want to bring up, though, on the Warriors before we do. Like, I remember David Patrick Kelly so well in it, Warriors, and clicking the bottles.
Do you know where he got that from?
No, I think maybe David Harris might have mentioned it, but remind me here.
what I heard, because I never met him personally, we didn't have scenes together, but he kept in touch with some people that I know, and is that when he grew up in England, I think it was, there was a guy in the alley that would be calling out somebody's name, and he would do the bottle thing, and that's where he allegedly got it from. But, you know, that story passes around. You know, I learned more about the Warriors from the fans when I do these sign-ins and stuff.
Yeah.
Because, for instance, I only really know my scene. I mean, I know the whole movie. I've seen it a bunch of times, you know, since 1979.
Yeah.
But you know, the fans know every line. Like I said, like Rocky Horror and every moment of it. And people that I hang out with when I do these events. And somebody told me, they said, do you know that your tattoo, the Puerto Rican flag, is the only flag that appears in the movie? And I was like, no, I didn't know that. You know, so the people are they just love the characters. It hits a nerve. And it's part of pop culture. When Shaq won the NBA title, he goes, "Can you dig it?" You know, you hear that all over the place. I just saw, I think it's a Wendy's commercial about French fries, and it has like a little of the Warrior Conclave scene in it. I was like, whoa. But and then when the video game came out, we got a new fan. That's one thing. Somebody right now, somewhere in the world, is kicking my ass in that video game.
And, of course, I interviewed David Harris on here. What a nice guy.
Oh, he is. He is.
Yeah.
He is very religious. He's a very nice guy. And when he gets together with me, I make him act like a junior high school boy because we'd be cracking up laughing. We're like junior high school little boys. We're just laughing and laughing and laughing. We went to San Antonio together for the San Antonio Horrific Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
We laughed the whole time because I can make David laugh. Well, I'm pretty good at making people laugh, but particularly David and I, we look at each other, we just crack up. The other day, yesterday, Dorsey Wright, another one of my good buddies.
Yeah, you worked with him in Vamp Bikers as well.
Yeah, Vamp Bikers, yeah. Dorsey's in it, and so is Brian Tyler.
Okay.
So, yeah, and you know he's a retired state trooper, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and I always ask him, I said, when you were giving out tickets, did they recognize you? He goes, no, they were too worried about the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, Dorsey posted the other day on my page, somebody, where the orphan scene is,
mm-hmm.
somebody wrote, because I've seen it before, somebody has said it, but Dorsey, he works for Transit in New York. He saw that somebody with the orphans on a rooftop, it says, Apache Ramos, rain on those warriors. So he said, you know you're famous when you see your name in the street rooftop. So that just recently happened. So it keeps going on and on and on. He's another guy that we get together. He's in Vamp Bikers. We just laugh. And Michael Beck is one of the Swan.
Yeah.
One of the nicest men in the world. He's just just a good man. Him and David Harris are very close. And we went to San Antonio together, and my daughter was pregnant with Santana then, and he prayed over my daughter. This is a funny story. We're at the Riverwalk in San Antonio. The big thing they got there is the Riverwalk with the river, with the boats, and they have little cafes and stuff. So we were sitting having ribs, and we had a waiter that never heard of the Warriors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somehow the conversation came up. But somebody came over and said to Michael Beck, because they always recognize Michael and David, and the waiter goes, well, let me call my sister. So he comes back, and he says to us, he goes, my sister wants to know, is Apache Ramos here? And Michael Beck, he just ratted me out. Oh, yes, he is. And he just had a good time with that. He had a good time because, you know, Michael is a star. I mean, he was fantastic. In Xanadu, I mean, he's such a good-looking guy. I mean, but in his heart, he's just a wonderful guy. In fact, the whole Warrior crew, I pretty much get along with everybody there, and they invite me because promoters, when they invite the Warriors, they basically invite the Warriors. But we have a whole, like, B squad with Wanda Velez, one of the Lizzies, and the candy store girl, Genevieve Ortiz, and we're like the B squad. You know? we come off the bench. but the fans love us all. It's amazing. And so many people tell me, "Oh, I was in it because of the big conclave scene." Yeah, a lot of actors got work that time.
James
So Greg
Remar.
must be sick with me by now.
Yeah, James Remar. James Remar was in that.
Who?
James Remar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, when I had heart problems and I was in the hospital, even though I'd never met him,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a big fan of his because I was a big Dexter fan. Let me tell you, I love Dexter. But he called me in the hospital when I was really in bad shape, and I thought that was just shows you, that was a nice thing to do because we
Yeah.
had never did a scene together. So that was really nice.
I got to get other warriors on the show, especially for the film's um 45th no 40th
The
anniversary
40th
coming.
anniversary, I think it's February 9th, I think it is,
Yeah.
2019. I think it's
Wow.
9th or 11th. I always get the dates confused because I'm old.
Yeah.
I had too much fun in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I'm only finally being cool now. But, yes, 40 years old. It blows my mind.
Oh yeah. I would
Being
have
on the
been.
Warriors is like being part of a Super Bowl team, even though I was on the bench, but so many good things. My daughter said she would get free drinks when she was going out in bars. She goes, "Yeah, my dad's in the Warriors." Plus she's fine too, but she would see like a bartender with a Warriors shirt. The costumes.
Yeah.
I can't. What is her name? Oh, Bobby Mannix. Bobby
Okay.
Mannix is the one that did the costumes and the vests. Forget it. You know how many vests I've tagged? Because I have. I'm not gonna brag, but I have one of the best autographs because the way I write Apache and stuff, which I've been writing on walls since I was a little kid. But I knew it would be good for something. It worked out good. But yeah, she said that the orphans, because we have the worst. When everybody, there's so many great outfits that people get dressed in. And what do we have? We have like this ugly green T-shirt with orphans on the back. But the story is, because I was supposed to meet her when she came to New York, but something happened, and I just couldn't make it that day. But she said that she had run out of money when she was doing the orphans costumes. Because she had done so many. If you look at the people going down the subways, all those different costumes, well, when she got to the orphans, that's why we wound up with it. And now there's a friend of mine, because I have an orphans page on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and you can reach me at Apache Ramos on Facebook, because I just got turned on to Instagram, but I don't know how to work that yet. And Twitter, I don't really know what I'm doing there. So my son-in-law got me an account, but I'm never on that. But I'm on Facebook, and I have an orphans page.
Okay.
And that the orphans page is, I think, what is it called again? We got a heavy rep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My friend David Goody, he made this page for me, and it's been quite successful because people put a lot of warrior stuff on it and different things, and it's just fun. So my daughter said when I asked her how I would make friends, and then she laughed at me. Now she calls me the mayor of Facebook. In fact, when I was really, when I first got into it, if I didn't post because I was having health issues, people would call her up. Is your dad all right? Is your dad all right? So you want to reach me, Facebook's the best way to reach me.
Absolutely. Yeah. You mind if I add you on Facebook, or are you over the limit?
No, please do. Please do.
I'll do that.
Because then you can see my craziness.
There you go.
When I was working, I had a rise and grind. When I was working, because I would get up at 5 in the morning, at 5:30, because I live in Queens. And I was working. My last gig was in Brooklyn, because we moved to Queens when my daughter we were living in Jersey. But when my daughter got married, my wife wanted to be close to the babies, and that's how you stay married almost 35, 34 years, by listening to the boss. Who really cares less about the Warriors? Let me tell you, she doesn't go to any of these events. She does her own thing. She has her own things that she does, and so we coexist with two completely opposite people. I'm very outgoing in terms of the way I talk and stuff, but she's more in control, and she's the religious one of the family. Somebody's got to save me.
Yeah. Well, you were also in, I didn't see these, but I noticed them on your credit list, Vamp Bikers and Vamp Bikers Deuce.
Yeah,
Any stories
and
about...
Vamp Bikers 3. There's a trilogy.
Okay.
There's a trilogy. The people that are... Did I tell you who's in this? Did I tell you that we have Michael Alec, who was the club kid, wound up killing his drug dealer. He just got out of jail. Makes the appearance in this film. We have the great Michael Musto, the Village Voice critic, with his column El Dulce Mosto for years. In fact, I used to read that to my daughter when she was little. We have Screaming Rachel Kane, the queen of house music out of Chicago and president of Track Records. We got Lilo Brancata from Bronx Tale, the movie Bronx Tale, and yours truly. But it's a cast. There's so many. Because the Vamp Bikers 1 started when I saw that crew from Coney Island. But then it just grew. Oh, and I have scenes with Angel Salazar. You know him as Chi-Chi from Scarface.
Oh, okay.
And you know, Chi-Chi from Scarface, like this, we had a police blotter on this Vamp Bikers because, you know, you had the Club Kid killer, Michael Alec. I didn't do any scenes with that guy. We got Lilo, who got into some trouble. And then one day I'm watching TMZ, and I see my man Chi-Chi. He got in trouble for some child support stuff. They got arrested in Arizona. So my man, some of the cast in Vamp Bikers. Also, we got real New York City bikers. These are not actors. These are New York City bikers. And one thing I learned when I started working with the bikers, I was at the Puerto Rican Film Festivals for Vamp Bikers 1. And I was on a panel. And I was some motorcycle guys, bikers that are in the film, and this one guy, he's the leader of the Metal Militia out of the Bronx, and he's one of the few guys that are shorter than me, but he's a mixed martial artist. I mean, he would just kill me. He's like 25 years younger than me. So we're sitting on stage, and I was complimenting the biker guys for, you know, their appearances and being, you know, acting on the show, and, you know, blah blah blah. You know, I was being good. So I looked over at my man and I said, and my fellow thespian did a good job. So when we got off stage and we're sitting down, my daughter's sitting behind me. He sits next to me and he leans over and he goes, "If you wasn't Apache Ramos, I would have bust your ass." I go, "Why, bro?" He says, "You called me a lesbian." I said, "No, I didn't call you a lesbian, bro. It's a thespian."
Oh.
So, yeah, that was funny. I can keep going. Anything else you want to say, Greg?
Yeah, you did another film. Again, I haven't seen this, but I noticed some of the names in it. The ungovernable force. You had, of course.
Oh yeah, in fact, I've never seen it.
It's got Michael Myers, Tony Moran, and Debbie Rochon, Lloyd Kaufman.
Yep. It has. I haven't seen it, and I got to work in that film because of Facebook.
Oh.
Because what's his name? David Sullivan, one of the producers in it, he saw my name in Facebook, and he contacted me, and he paid me and Jazz to go out to Boston to shoot a scene, just one scene. He gave me a nice pay, put me up in a hotel, and we wound up being good friends. And I'm going to see him in about 3 days for the first time since I made Ungovernable Force. They couldn't say the orphans, so they said the abortions.
Oh.
So my group is called the Abortions, and they flew me out there to put paint on my face. So, and I remember I was hurting. My legs were hurting. I had a little bit of a running scene, and somebody didn't show up. So my daughter's actually in that. It's the first time we've ever been in a film together. But I'm going to see him on the 3rd of August because I've been invited to see the Yankees and the Red Sox. I grew up in the Bronx. I'm a big Yankee fan.
There you go.
And I have a friend that's a big Red Sox fan. And last year they invited me out, and the stadium staff was just wonderful to me. Man, they treated me so good, even though I was a Yankee fan. And the Yankees won. It's one of the biggest rivalries in the history of United States sports is Boston versus the Yankees. Ever since they traded Babe Ruth to us like schmucks, they traded Babe Ruth so that they could finance No Nanette, the play on Broadway. Unbelievable. But so I'm going to go see Sullivan in Governable Force. I'm going to crash at his house for a little bit. He says, "I heard you coming to Boston. You better stop by and see me." So it's another good friend. Yeah, I was in that too. I was in there. I have not seen it, though. I have not seen it. But, yeah. In fact, I haven't seen all of Vamp Bikers yet because it so much happened to it. I did a lot of publicity for like the local TV shows in New York here.
Mm-hmm.
I did some promotions for that. But yeah, I'm very proud. And these guys had a dream to make a film. Look at this. They're on Sony now. Unbelievable. So that's why I like hanging out with these young actors.
Yeah.
Young producers, because Hollywood ain't calling me. So I don't say Hollywood. I do Hollywood films.
You did the Dysfunctional Mob as well.
Somebody's going to copyright that, because I'm too lazy to do it. But I'm the first one to call it Hollywood film. I'm working with these young, because New York is just the perfect background to shoot all kinds of films. That's why I love the films from the 70s and the 80s, because they have old New York.
Yeah.
Like the French Connection and so many of those New York. I love to see the films that show the New York City that I grew in, not the New York City now, because now. Today I was on the subway. I used to ride 6 subways and 2 buses a day to go to work before I retired. And since I retired, I rarely go on the subway. And today I was on the subway going to Soho, and the platforms were so hot. Now I know why, but the New York subways are so, I come out of the city, like the Bronx, where I was working for 15 years. I was recently in that area. I couldn't believe it. New York changes constantly. Old neighborhoods that were terrible it's so weird. Like sometimes I feel like a tourist, It's like, whoa, I don't know this New York.
No.
I stay in my house I have a small apartment in New York, and that's a victory. With good rent. Because the rents here are ridiculous.
You were also in the Dysfunctional Mob.
Oh, that's it. Dysfunctional Mob. We're supposed to be filming. I'm glad you reminded me. Yeah. We're supposed to be filming in, I think it's August 12th. My man got access to a pool. I love this. It's like guerrilla films. You got access to a pool. Yeah, I did that one. Yeah, when I'm doing that one, he's got me playing some kind of mob guy. But I think it's 3 of the films. Oh, one of my favorites that I did, where I played the Illuminati, and Cabin in the Hood, directed by Chop Boogie. It's a comedy, and I really, really like this film. It deals with a lot of stereotypes, and it's called Cabin in the Hood. It's all black cast, pretty much, and I had a really good time. The director, Chop Boogie, she was wonderful, and that was a good time. That one, and the one I just finished, Orchard Beach. That was crazy because I saw it for the first time. Because I'm sure other actors have told you this. You just hate seeing yourself on screen.
Yeah.
And so they invited me. It's just so weird. It's just like. You think about, did I really say that? Did I do that? Oh, I should have did this. It just drives you insane. So my daughter was like, Dad, I'll come with you. Okay, stop it. And my son-in-law, Greg, so they came with me. But they have these new theaters. They're new to me. They're called the Alamo Draft Houses, and they actually serve you food while you're watching a movie.
Oh, wow.
And the first time... Yeah, it's dynamite, man. Somebody should have came up with this concept before.
Yeah.
Because I went to one in Brooklyn. I went to see an old Pam Grier film.
Okay.
Pam Grier was Marsha's roommate. Can you believe that?
Oh, yeah, Jackie Brown herself, yeah.
I know. I when she told me that, I was like, Pam Grier, oh, my God. I genuflected. I was like, oh, my God. When we did in fact, Marsha and I, we have Marsha... she like she did with you when you contacted her. She said Apache Ramos blah blah. But she did that for a film that we did when they had it's called the greatest cult film.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that.
Yeah, me too. Because she said so they interviewed, and that was the first time I really heard the incredible life of Marsha McBroom and her sisters. I mean, she's an incredible family that we've married into. But she said, well, my son's father-in-law is Apache Ramos from the Warriors, so they hired me right away, and that was a paid gig, so that was really nice. But I got to sit down and listen to Marsha talk about herself, which she doesn't hardly do when you're with the family and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to hear what an incredible life she's had. It's just beautiful. And there's my son-in-law Greg. He's on the group called Slave back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Had a greatest hits album, Slave, and he's on the cover. And when I was a national record salesman, I sold a lot of that album, and I literally had the future in my hands. This kid wound up marrying a daughter that I hadn't had yet, and he gave me 2 grandchildren. I mean, I had the future in my hands. And Marsha, she's on so many album covers. I mean, and when you go to her house, she just has a wonderful collection of all the things that she's done. I mean, she's done so many. She's been on the cover of Essence. I mean, it's just beautiful, just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons that my wife is beautiful too. That our grandchildren came out so beautiful. Yeah.
Going back to Rodney Dangerfield, he said he's got beautiful. He says he's got beautiful children. That thank God my wife cheats on me.
That's a good one. One of my favorite comedians is Jack Benny, because I remember watching Jack.
Oh
Benny
yeah.
And he had that thing where his shtick was that how cheap he was, and he had this thing where he goes, the guy comes and sticks him up. Your money or your life? Your money or your life? I'm thinking. I love those old guys. Like I wouldn't go to sleep until I saw after Johnny Carson. I missed that guy.
Yeah.
That was Johnny Carson show and all that. Yeah.
One more question.
TV now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say one more question is that when you do the conventions and whatnot, and I just did my first convention last year, one of my interview guests invited me to Toronto to a horror film convention, and I'm going to go back there again this November, and it was just an amazing time because I have
much fun.
Yeah, I've never been outside New Brunswick until then, and I'm certainly not going to turn this actress down. I was able to be her assistant at her table, which was just amazing for me. But I'm going to say this. I just wondering, what's the most interesting or intriguing thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Oh, I had to go to Boston, and it had to do what I did in Governable Force.
Okay.
And, we were playing the dozens. Playing the dozens is an old New York expression when you're kidding each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were doing the whole Boston Yankee thing, blah, blah, blah. So this guy that was playing like a zombie, he was still in makeup, and we were standing by his car smoking cigarettes. The habit one of the last fucking habits I can't get rid of. But anyway, so we're sitting around hanging out, and he asked me to autograph his car.
Okay.
His car. He had this. He said, "Well, I'm going to sell this car anyway. I'm going to junk. Because it was old, messed up car." So I signed it, and because he was a Red Sox fan, I did my famous Apache ape the way I do it with the arrow, and I did the old Donny Osmond thing, which I picked up from Donny. Thanks for last night, you cocksucker. I added that part. I'm sorry, I don't mean to curse.
Oh, don't worry. When this goes online, don't worry about it. All
right.
Yeah.
Because I'm holding back. I have a very what do you call it? Flavorful language sometimes. Because my wife, she hates cursing. So if I was out in the street, I'd probably be a little more loose. But actually, I got rid of everybody today. And and then at the last minute, I had to go back to the studio. We went to this incredible club in New York to do the documentary today that we're working on for Rocker's Revenge and the Streetwise Arthur Baker thing. And it was just, I had to go back there, get back on the subway. It was so hot on the subway platforms. I mean, it's like a free sauna. And then when you walk in and get the air-conditioned car, it feels so good. So I hadn't done that in a while. So this was last 2 days, and then I got Greg the Python,
Mm-hmm.
my orphan bro,
Yeah.
and then I have this. We're going to Boston, and then we're going in. Where we're going? First Rhode Island, then Boston, the Red Sox game. Then I'm gonna see the Ingovernable Force, David Sullivan, and then we're doing the baseball in Coney Island, and then I'm going into a coma. Because I'm old now, bro. Let me tell you. Arthur invited me to a party tonight at this place called Gospel, right? And the party starts at 11.
Yeah.
Now, Apache used to party his ass off. Let me tell you, we had all that rocket fuel back in the day too. But I'm almost 65 years old, and I like being home. I got everything I need right here. So I was like, I'm sorry, Arthur, I'm not coming. If it had started at 8, then I could have swung it. Maybe 8 to 11, but I can't hang out like I used to. I don't want to. That's the good part. I don't want to, and I don't need to. So.
Well, Rodney Dangerfield said he knew he was getting old because he walked past a cemetery and 2 guys ran after him with shovels.
Oh, that's a good one. That reminds me of a little bit of Young Frankenstein, Mel Brooks.
I love that movie.
Oh, my God, I love that movie. And I love Mel Brooks that he married one of my childhood crushes because I always had a thing ever since growing up.
Anne Bancroft, yeah.
Anne Bancroft. Oh, my God. And I was like, how did he get to marry Anne Bancroft, whose real name was Anna Italiano. She's from the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had when I saw Mrs. Robinson, that was it for me for the rest of my life. But and they said, how did he get to marry her? And then she said, I couldn't get rid of him. It just sounds so much like him. I just couldn't get rid of him. I mean, and he's still going strong. He's in a film. I don't know if it's on my IMDb thing yet because I don't know if it was released. I know they showed it at the Jewish Museum of Art over here in Manhattan. I didn't go that night, but I don't know if it's released. But here it goes again. Facebook. The first job I ever had was I was a busboy at a place called it was a chain called Horn and Hardart, and they were based out of Horn and Hardart were based out of Philly in New York, and my grandmother was a nickel thrower, because your food was behind these beautiful Art Deco glass and marble, and you would put your nickels in to get what you wanted. And out of these spouts came these beautiful, like dragon spouts, came your coffee. And it was back in days when people were more communal as opposed to the fast food generation. People more sat down and ate with each other. You could be a judge and the next guy could be homeless, but you would sit and eat, put your nickels, and they also have the hot table. So Horn and Hardart you can look that up. Horn and Hardart was a wonderful place. And my grandmother would give you 20 nickels for $1 without even counting it because she was a nickel thrower. They would stand behind these beautiful, ornate Art Deco glass cages and give you your change so that you can operate the machine. And so I had posted about my first job, and here this woman from Seattle, Washington contacts me who's doing a film about the automat. So she contacted me, and my reason we mentioned Mel Brooks, he's in that film also. Because he used to eat the automat. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg, our Supreme Court Justice, she's in the film too. And Apache Ramos is in the film too. We talk about our experiences in the eating and enjoying Horn. It's HORN and Hardart, HARDART, and it was beautiful times. Beautiful times. The last one I think was in the 70s, or maybe 81. It was the last one. Was on 42nd Street and 3rd Avenue. But they were classic. They were all over the country. So yeah, that's another film I did. And here we go again because of Facebook. So Facebook is a good thing. You want to? Oh yeah. If you got a little bit of a rep and people want to look you up. But I've had a few crazies too. I've had a few crazy people. Mm-hmm. But that happens. That's the world. But I'm a social worker, so I'm used to it. I worked in places where, we say good morning, and the person say, "What the fuck do you mean by that?"
Yeah.
Because when you see people at their worst, you got to be able to have a thick skin and be able to find out what the real cause of the whole situation is. At the same time, not be stupid too. So it was a challenging job every day.
Yeah.
I'm proud that I did my 26 years. I'm proud that I got my pension out of it. I did it, but I could never do it again.
It's funny, you mentioned Anne Bancroft before, and
Yeah.
Mrs. Robinson, a graduate. It's funny because last year I interviewed William Daniels, of course, who played Dustin Hoffman's father in that film.
Right.
And I'm about ready in a few days to upload that on my YouTube account. So perfect
I'm
timing.
gonna check it out. I'm gonna check out all your interviews. I didn't have no time. I had you, I looked you up,
Mm-hmm.
and I sent you to part of my team, but I didn't actually get a chance to do it because all these things, these things happens in bunches. I can go like a month and not do anything but go to the park and hang out with my grandkids, and then all of a sudden, boom, that's the way it is. I like it.
Well, that one there's the next one I upload, which will be in a few days. So, yeah, that he talks about The Graduate for its 50th anniversary. So, it's quite an interesting road because this just kind of landed on me, and I've been doing this podcast. I've been here at the station since '05, but I've been doing this podcast since 2015. So it was just it's been quite a thing to be able to talk to these people from these movies like The Warriors, and I love the Midnight Crowd. It's my favorite audience. They seem to really get behind these movies, and they know all the lines, and it's wonderful.
I just recently got a 55-inch screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I, one of the things that we enjoy doing together is watching old movies.
Yeah.
And we're big Betty Davis fans,
Oh, yes.
Anything with Betty in it. In fact, I'm so proud that my granddaughter Santana is born on her birthday.
Oh, wow.
I am so proud of that. I should have guessed it when we had the pool. I should have guessed it, but she was supposed to be born later. But she came out on Betty Davis's birthday. She's Series Aries. But, yeah, and, but the 55-inch, the reason why I mention that is because, we just watched, oh, my God, I can't think of the title, Gene Tierney, when she lets the little boy drown.
I can't think of that, no.
Leave Her to Heaven. Is it Leave Her to Heaven? Oh, no. But anyways, when she lets the baby drown, and we had, all these old movies that we've watched, we know them by heart. They're like brand new because the screen is so big now. We just picking up so many things. I just love old movies, old Hollywood. I think that's what really got me involved with everything is the magic of Hollywood. I got my wife on the other line. She wants to know what's for dinner. She must think that we had a little 20-minute interview.
Actually, we're almost 100 minutes here, but
oh man, you got the best out of me, bro.
Oh yes, I love it. My longest interview was 3 hours. So I mean, you're not my longest, but
okay.
But before I let you go, I was just wondering if I could get you to do a plug for my show.
Okay, this is Apache Ramos. I'm a cast member from the Warriors. I was the Orphans War Chief. I'm the one that said, "We're going to rain on you, Warriors." And I'm happy to be on Greg Gilbert's Python's Paradise out of New Brunswick, Canada. Thank you, Canada. We're going to rain on them Warriors, baby.
Yes.
And, Greg Gilbert is now an honorary orphan. Good night.
I am honored. Thank you so very much, Apache.
Thank you, bro. I got to make dinner now.
Yeah. Well, you take it easy and God bless you.
God bless you too, Greg. Let's us, Greg, stay together.
Absolutely. You take it easy.
Bye-bye, bro.
Bye.